Welcome to the Growth Lab, a trusted space for parents navigating their child's developmental journey. I'm Luba, Patlakh, a speech-language pathologist, myofunction therapist, child and family advocate, and a mom of three. For the last 15 years, I've worked with more than 150,000 children and their families, helping parents understand what they're seeing, what it means, and how to move forward with confidence. This podcast is for parents who want clear, credible guidance when information feels overwhelming or decisions feel heavy. Here, we break down speech, feeding, breathing, learning differences, attention, IEPs, and more in practical, easy to understand ways alongside trusted experts. My goal is simple, and it's to help you feel informed, supported, and confident as you advocate for your child. You're in the right place, so let's begin. Some missions are born from business ideas. Others are born from heartbreak. Today on the Growth Lab podcast, we're talking about pediatric cancer, the strength of families, and how love can become leadership. And for me, this conversation is super personal because I lost my mom to cancer, and that loss changed my entire life, how I see advocacy, how I see children, and the responsibility we carry as leaders. So I want to welcome Katia Conte, and I want to talk with you about what you're doing, your organization, and how you got started in this path.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me this afternoon on your podcast. It's an honor to be here and in order to share my daughter's story. Thank you.
So take us back to the moment that changed everything for you.
Yeah, so back in October of 2016, which will make 10 years this year, it was out of the clear blue sky. We were pumpkin picking with the family. It was a normal family tradition that we do every year. And, we noticed that Daniela wasn't herself, right? She wasn't herself. She was always like bubbly, happy. She did gymnastics when she was younger. She was always playing with her siblings. And we just noticed that something wasn't right that day. Wasn't herself. Because usually when we're out, with family, she's smiling, she's happy, she's playing with her siblings, her cousins. We noticed that when we got home that something was really, really wrong. And basically she was just, I said to myself, something's not right. My Daniela, what's going on? She kept complaining about her belly was hurting, and prior a month to that, she was in school and the teachers would tell me that, she was complaining about stomach ache. So as a mom, you don't really think of, right, the C word. You thought of maybe you cook something, she's constipated, you think all these things except for the big C word that, and here we are at home and all of a sudden, she's just collapses. Just collapses. And we were like, oh my God, Daniela, you okay? And my husband at the time was saying, Daniela, where does it hurt? Point to daddy where it hurts. And she was actually pointing to her liver, which I had no idea. Obviously,
how old was she at this point?
She was 5. We had just moved into a brand new home. We had just celebrated my twins' 1-year-old birthday. Here I am. I have a 2-year-old daughter, another daughter at home. And here I am with Daniela with 5 years old. Just complaining out of the clear blue sky. And, my husband at the time kept saying, Daniela, point to daddy, where does it hurt? And he was pointing to her, she was pointing to her liver. And he felt it with his bare hands. And he turned around and he says to me, her liver's enlarged.
Oh my God.
And I said, what do you mean her liver's enlarged? He's like, no, her liver's enlarged. We need to go to the closest hospital, now. So, mind you, I have 3 little kids at home, moved into a brand new neighborhood, really, really didn't know anyone. We didn't know what the closest hospital was. So here we are telling my husband to tell my daughter, come on, Dad, we need to go to a hospital. It was scary. What do you do when you tell a 5-year-old we need to go to the emergency room now, right? Oh, no. You're thinking all these little things, I can't imagine what she was thinking in her head. That the first thing to me would be scared. I don't want to go. She kept saying, I don't want to go to the hospital. I'm scared. So after an hour, my husband convinced her to go. They got in the car and they drove to the closest hospital. They got there. They ran scans, as you know, PET scans, MRIs. And when they got the results back, they go to my husband and they say, this doesn't look good. You need to go to the closest children's hospital now in an ambulance. So he gives me a call and he was like, you know,
I have
they're
chills.
telling us to go to the children's hospital. And like, here I am with 3 other kids. I'm like, what's going on? I think at that point he kind of knew what was going on, but I don't know if he really wanted to tell me to scare me. Called that pediatrician to find out what was going on. And this was the weekend. Like, I think it was like Friday. Now we're here Saturday, right? Thinking like we're going to a brand new hospital. She's in like this room. They're doing test scans and MRIs. Here I am with 3 little kids, like trying to figure out, oh my God, trying to keep them calm, trying to figure out like what's going on. Like, you think I have all these things, like this can't be happening right now, right?
It's almost like
So-
not real. Yeah.
Not real, right? And you're thinking, okay, like you're trying to keep calm, and you're like, okay, everything's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Maybe it's just blood. She needs blood thinners. Or it's just like trying to think of anything at this point because, okay, she's gonna get a test. She's gonna be released, right? Well, I was wrong. You know, that Monday, I had my dad come and watch my kids, and I actually went to go see her. I went to go visit her in the hospital, and the minute I got in there, she was sleeping. Obviously, you know, they had already given her medication and everything, and they were trying to run some scares to figure out what was going on, blood work. And what I saw when I went into that room, mind you, her stomach was like the size of a basketball. And I think at that point, I still didn't know it was, you know, the C word. I go to my husband. I'm like, what is going on? You know, they didn't tell us yet. You know, they're still running scans. Called, you know, on the phone with the pediatrician, trying to explain to him what's going on. And here we are. No, my husband takes turns, and my husband and I are taking turns going back and forth to the hospital because, you know, we had little kids. So we wanted to be with her as much as we could, just try to keep her calm and tell her that everything was going to be okay. So Tuesday rolls around, obviously nothing, and I believe that Wednesday, I think I still remember the day. It was October 4th, 2016. My husband is at work. Here I am in the hospital with my daughter Daniela, and here I am seeing all these doctors at my door, and I'm like, this doesn't look good. They pull me into a small conference room with my husband on three-way while I was at work, and they tell me, sorry to tell you, Mr. and Mrs. Conte, but Daniela has cancer. Okay, so what do you do? What do you do when you hear those words, your child has cancer? Obviously,
what does that diagnosis feel like to the parent?
Yeah, the first
hear
words.
them say it.
Absolutely, like the first words were like, the first words I said was, no, this can't be true. You sure you have the right child? And, you know, I was kind of numb, trying to sink it all in. You know, I'm like, this can't be happening. I have a 5-year-old healthy girl. How can this be happening? Mm-hmm. And then when they throw this word at you, you know, the type of cancer, because you're thrown in a world you know nothing about, right? I'm sure all of us growing up, you know, as we were kids, saw commercials on St. Jude, and you know, and you would always say, you know, those pro-children, hopefully this will not be my child one day. Unfortunately, that was not the case. You know, it was my child. And when they throw this word at you, you know, rhabdomyosarcoma, we were like, what is that? You know, and that was the type of cancer she had.
Yeah.
She had rhabdomyosarcoma, which is a soft tissue cancer, which affects about 400 to 500 children every year in the United States. We call it rare because it falls in a rare bucket. Obviously, you know, I always say child cancer is not rare until it happens to your family and to your child. I thought she had leukemia because I had friends growing up that had leukemia as teenagers, and I thought that was because all you heard was the common cancer leukemia. But when they throw a word at you that you can't even pronounce, it's like, what? What is it? Like, you know, what do we do next? You know, and they sat us down. I mean, I can't tell you, they gave, you know, instructions of what had to happen. They told us that if my husband brought her in 2 days after, she would have been completely gone.
Oh my God.
That's how fast the cancer had spread, you know, which was started in her liver and then it metastasized. Obviously, as she was growing, they said when you're 5 years old, you know, your growth hormones, you know, they trigger, and that's why the tumor was very silent, you know. Looking at pictures prior, like 6 months before she was diagnosed, I'm like, this is her in the pool.
Yeah.
Happy, jumping
How could
at
this
the
be
beach.
happening?
Like, you don't notice these things. Like, how can this be? Is this really normal?
Oh
Is
my
this what
God.
cancer is about? Like, it kind of sneaks up on you, right? So basically, like, it was already in her, but it was very silent. And I guess slowly it was metastasizing, all these little tumors in her body, because when we saw the PET scan, she had lesions all over her body.
Okay.
So they had to start chemo immediately.
Yeah.
They put a port in. I can remember she had to go down and get a port in, which was very scary, seeing a 5-year-old go through surgery and cutting her open here, starting chemo, because they didn't know. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what was going to happen.
Started their protocols as soon as possible to have some hope to, yeah.
Yeah, like we have to start chemo immediately. And I remember 2 days later, they did the port. We went down for surgery. They put the port in. They started the chemo. I remember them giving me a handbook of what she's supposed to be doing next, like all the protocols. Like, this was all verbish, like, all these chemo protocol treatments. Like, oh my God, like, what is this?
I can't imagine how, for you as a parent, what time felt like in that time.
You just say yes to everything. Like,
if this is going to help, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah.
Right. Let's do it. What is it going to take to save her life? Basically, let's do it.
Wow.
We didn't know. They put her on medication, steroids. I mean, you name it. Like, we didn't know what was happening next. It was just happened so quickly. She was diagnosed, the port,
Yeah.
the chemo, and this is like going to be 10 years this year. And I'm still looking back, and I always say this story. I wash, rinse, repeat, because it's the same thing over and over again. But then, like, it's like, wow, this really happened. Like, can't believe it's been 10 years since the day of diagnosis, right? This year will be in October. So we did it. They told us the protocol treatments, but, we were in there. I mean, I was her caregiver, obviously, for 4 years, because she went through this for 4 years. We had family moved in because I had other children. Like, how do you explain all this to your other children when you go home?
No
and
family
explain
prepared for a journey like this, and I can't
No
imagine the financial strain on you, because you can't work, you have to be with your child.
Yes.
And emotional isolation just because you're going through so much, and everybody else is living, and you're living in this nightmare.
Right, and you're trying to stay calm for your child,
The
right?
siblings, the other siblings.
You're trying to stay as much calm as you can, because you don't want her to get scared. And, obviously she had to grow up as an adult. We had to explain to her. Obviously, she didn't really know at the time what was going on, because she was so out of it, and eventually we, when we started the treatments, we had to tell her. We actually had to show pictures of, like, what was going to happen. And when they told me about her hair falling out, I'm like, and she had beautiful, beautiful long brown hair, and they were like,
Did she go bald in the time?
She went, yeah. I mean, the minute she started, these harsh treatments, I mean, I can't tell you, within like a few days, her hair started falling out on the pillow. I remember using a lint brush and just, picking it up on her pillowcase. That's how harsh the treatments were. I mean, her hair was gone within like a week or two, I remember. But we had to tell her. We had to tell her what was going on, and she took it good. She took it okay. You told her, like, this is normal. This is what's going to happen. And, mom and dad are here. You had to tell her that everything was going to be okay, because we didn't even know if everything was going to be okay. But we had to keep her calm, obviously, right?
Who else does she have for that
anxiety?
Support? And then who supported you? It's...
Exactly. So, we went ahead with the treatments. They told us that, this is what's going to happen. And we were in that hospital. Didn't know if we were going to come out of there alive, to be honest with you. But we did. We were in there for 6 weeks. We had to see if the treatments were shrinking the tumors. And they were, little by little. There were times where she would vomit. She had to be on pain medications. Like, I can't tell you the amount that she was on, the steroids.
I remember when my mom got diagnosed, and she died from pancreatic cancer. It was all very fast as well. That initially, when she tried chemo, that was the first thing that she tried, and she said, I'm not going to be doing chemo. And I was like, why? And she said, because it's going to kill me faster than anything. I don't feel better. I feel way worse. My dad later told me that she would faint in the night, and it was just very scary. And even as an adult, like, I can't imagine you guys with your child But hearing that my mom is fainting in the night and holding secrets from us because she doesn't want us to worry, and you kind of have the reverse situation. But she didn't end up doing another chemo and wanted to do some holistic things. And sadly, that was not helpful to her in that time. And we would tell her, like, there's different cocktails, like you could try different types of chemo. But she was very adamant that it made her feel so sick that it was worth for her not to do it. But I do feel, knowing what I know now, maybe we could have encouraged her differently. But it's a difficult time for anyone going through that.
Yeah, child or an adult. But, you know, seeing what I saw, you know, these children are so resilient. You know, there were so many families we met in the hospital, so many children, you know, Daniela made so many friends. So these kids are resilient, you know. It's tough seeing it these children go through this, and we ask ourselves why they go through this and why they don't deserve this. But, you know, what I saw is, like, these kids are resilient. They really are, and they're so strong and brave. And you know, this is why, like, I get my inspiration from Daniela, because I saw what she went through the entire 4 years. Like, you know, the cancer just was relentless. She always kept saying, what does the cancer want with me? You know, enough is enough. You know, she kept beating it and it kept coming back. She kept beating it. It's just that the treatments were just brutal, and they were just not working with her type of cancer.
She struggled.
She kind of battled this for 4 years, back and forth. You know, the second relapse happened back in 2017, when they told us that, you know, sorry to tell you, you know, we get this phone call saying that, you know, sorry to tell you, your daughter has cancer again, and it's back and it's worse. And I kept saying, what? We just went through a year of treatments. How can this be?
How could it be?
You know, the cancer is supposed to be gone, obviously, right? Well, that wasn't the case. You know, obviously, the disease was so much further worse, they said, that it was when she was first diagnosed. So we told us what the next steps were, and they were like, you know, we're going to try different types of chemo, you know, and this time you have to be hospitalized for it. You can't just come to the hospital, get chemo, or at the clinic and go home. Like, this time it's like the real deal. Like, you have to come and pack your bags, and it could be weeks, it could be months, and we had to tell her. How do you tell her?
And she's 9 years old then. No,
she
this
was actually not 6 at the time, yeah.
So when it came back, she was 6. And
she was 6, yeah, and we did it. You know, we packed the bags, we took turns, and we did it. And we did it for an entire year. And, you know, this time around, the treatments were harsh. I mean, worse. Where she wouldn't be able to. I remember the year of 2018 that I was in the summer in the hospital with her in the summer for a month, where she couldn't really talk because the treatments were so bad. You know, I remember she had flush here. I remember I would come into the hospital room. You know, I would keep rubbing her feet to make her comfortable. I don't think at the time she was noticing that I was there, but I kept talking to her, because she was just so out of it from all the treatments and everything else that they gave her. But she pulled through. She pulled through for an entire year. And that's when she was able to make her wish, right? We all went to Make-A-Wish to Disney as a family. We loved it. You know, we were like, oh my God, she beat this thing. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because in 2000, fast forward to 2019, her cancer came back. But it wasn't really all over her body. It was just certain spots. So, you know, we met with the doctors there, the oncologist, and we were just thinking of what the next steps were. And, you know, we tried radiation. She went through multiple weeks of radiation, and it kind of worked, but the cancer was just so relentless that not even, you know, anything at this point that they would give her would go away. It was just very aggressive. And this is kind of what we learned about rhabdomyosarcoma. It's a relentless cancer that is just sometimes the chemo doesn't work. And what do you do?
Did you meet other families in this time with similar diagnosis?
Yeah, we met families whose children were there that had leukemia. You know, some families were private, but the ones that we met at the Ronald McDonald House, you know, you're there for 4 years, so you get to see the same people there in the same families every day. So you get to bump into them and say, you know, I'm so-and-so, why are you here? And it's heartbreaking to see some of these stories, like,
of course.
And then you're like, this can't be real, because you're thrown in a world you know nothing about. We thought everything was going to be okay until it wasn't. Yeah. So, long story short, we tried everything that we could to save her. Unfortunately, the cancer was just so aggressive, and that's when doctors told us that they sat us down. I remember closer to the year when this is 2020, which is the year of the COVID, right? And they, we started seeing I started seeing a change in her. She was very jaundiced, always very sleepy. They didn't think that, anything of it until, this is what it's going to be. I had to admit her to the emergency room, which she's never been. In ICU, because it got to the point where it got very bad in 2020. I remember during Valentine's Day, I remember she was able to go to school and then she came back. It was just too much. It was at the point where I had to be calling doctors and say, I have to bring her in. Something's not right. And, that's when we ran some tests, and it was just went downhill from there, to be honest with you. I was kind of in denial because, remember, she pulled this through 3 times, and I thought it was like, no, she's going to make it. She's going to make it. What can we do? And what do you do? What do you do when you run out of options? No, what do you do when doctors sit you down and, they tell you...
And this whole time, you've never lost hope because you just want your daughter to know that there's a chance there'll be a miracle. There's a chance she'll pull through because she continued to.
She did, and she was a warrior. This is what I tell people every time I share her story. She was a warrior because she was, and she's my inspiration. There are times in the morning where, I was like, what do you do? What do you do when you got 3 other children, and here I am, you lost your oldest to cancer, and you fought for 4 years, and you say to yourself sometimes, like, what was all that fighting for 4 years, and then we ended up losing her. So, unfortunately, thank you. But unfortunately, something good has come out of this, and fortunately, she did end up passing away a week before COVID, which was March 2nd, 2020. So, next Monday will actually be her 6-year anniversary. And, I kind of went to work right away. Because I was her caregiver for 4 years. And I just said to myself, I turned around, I said to my husband, we need to get, an attorney on the phone. Let's start a nonprofit. Let's get her story out there. Let's bring the awareness. I'm like, this was so unfair. She deserves so much more. She was such a bubbly little girl, a healthy little girl,
Yeah.
And then, like, all of a sudden, like, she was so excited to start kindergarten and make new friends. We had just moved into a brand new neighborhood, and then a month in, we get this diagnosis.
That was all taken from her. Yeah.
What do you do? So I decided to take action. I really did. And
that's how the organization was born.
That's how the organization was born, the Daniela Conte Foundation. 4 months later, we got the paperwork in. Mind you, I had no nonprofit experience. I just said, let's share her story. Her story needed to get out there so that people are aware of this disease. And 4 months later, we get paperwork in the mail from the IRS. Here we are. We got a tax ID number. And it's so weird because we ended up getting that paperwork in July, which happens to be the month of her birthday, which I think was so strange. Right? And
do you feel spiritually connected? Do you
totally
talk with her through spirit?
Totally. She's been, when you lose someone so close, especially, my parents are both still alive, but, losing someone, especially your own child, my firstborn, I do believe in signs. It's crazy, and I talk to her because I know she's listening, which is it's just weird. I get the chills when I say that, but she knew everything about this organization. Yes. And, I totally believe it. She's up there and she's my inspiration. She's the fire and the fuel telling me, I hear her. It's so weird. Like, I hear her in my head every day. Talking to me and telling me, Mommy, go out there, right? Go out there and share my story. Go out there and, so that we can help more families, and go out there and make a difference. And that's what we've been doing.
You guys have been able to keep her alive, which is amazing.
Alive, yeah. And, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's going to be 6 years next week. Yeah. And here we are 6 years later. And I can't tell you the amount of impact that we have been doing, not here just in our local community, but all over the New York tri-state area. Who would have thought, right? So our mission now is, here at the Daniela Conte Foundation, is we provide financial and emotional support. We raise awareness every September because September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And we also fund research into rhabdomyosarcoma because hopefully one day when other children are being diagnosed with this type of cancer that Daniela have, right, we hope that they will have a better outcome than my daughter Daniela had.
Have they had any more new research or any new types of treatments come out since this time?
Not recently. Obviously, you know, there hasn't been any treatments, and I always hate to say this, there hasn't been any treatment for this type of cancer in the last 40 years. I mean, they're doing
40 years.
40 years, and, you know, they are studying this type of cancer. There are researchers out there that are studying this. You know, it just takes time. It takes money.
Taking a quick break from the episode to share something close to my heart. I wrote a children's book and it's out now. It's called Bobo Wears a Bow Tie, and it's about a little boy learning that growth doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be brave. If you're raising a child who's working hard, trying new things, or sometimes feeling unsure of themselves, this book was made for your family. Grab your copy today at bobowearsabowtie.com. That's BOBO wearsabowtie.com. All right, back to the episode.
Do you think that with the, and I don't know if you ever catch any of the Netflix series, but I know there's a lot, especially with technology today, AI, and as we move forward, do you think they'll be able to come up with something that can save the children that suffer? And is it specific to a pediatric?
I hope so. You know, I really, really do hope so. I know leukemia has come a long way. It's like now the percent, you know, the percentage rate is like, I think 90%. But then you have these other rare cancers. And I hate to say the word rare, because that means that very little funding goes into these cancers. Right. And it's like, why? You know,
then there's people like you who
go out there and
are recognizing that it's rare and trying to bring more awareness, more funding to make change. And that is so commendable. Your strength is unmatched, because not every parent can stand up after being knocked down by a bus and within 4 months start an organization. So
Thank you. It's not easy, but, you know, there are times that I do break down. I'm not going to lie, you know. I mean, it's hard work.
You're human. I'm breaking down now. I don't know you or your daughter.
And meant to mean you cry.
I haven't lived it in my own way.
But it's like, you know, people come up to me. I'm like, you know, how do you do this? And I'm like, until you've seen what I went through. Yeah. You know, the journey of those 4 years. You know, I don't know. There's a reason, I think, why she lasted those 4 years, and we're thankful because we made so many memories, right? We celebrated more birthdays. Yeah. She was able to make her first Holy Communion. We were able to go on the Make-A-Wish, you know. So I don't know. Like, I still don't have those answers yet, you know, because she would have been gone. Like I said, like, the doctors gave us 2 days, and she would have been completely, like, gone.
Yeah. So you hadn't done anything, right?
Yeah. So I think there's a reason why she lasted those 4 years, because I think God maybe wanted me to see how resilient and, you know, and how strong she was, or else I wouldn't have started this organization. I really wouldn't, you know, because I always tell people it's not for everyone. You know, if someone told me 5 years ago in my cards they saw that I would be running a children's pediatric cancer foundation, I would have thought that they were nuts. But now that I realize what my daughter went through, I couldn't let it go. The story had to get out there.
What you work on every day? Is this your prime?
This has now become my life.
Right.
And this is what I promised her, because I didn't get to see my daughter when she passed in the hospital. She actually passed away in my husband's arms. And when I saw her in the hospital, I made her this promise. Promise made and promise kept. And here we are 6 years later, financially helping over 600 families all across the New York tri-state with their mortgage. We're helping covering their rent. We're filling up their gas tanks, because you have to realize when a child is diagnosed with cancer, the financial, right, and emotional trauma.
Everybody's life is just fully at a halt.
Yeah, one parent has to go to work.
You know what's crazy though, and I don't know, like I own Kidology, which is the pediatric brand here in Pennsylvania, and we service birth to 21 years old for speech, occupational physical therapy, and ABA. And I know these are not children who have cancer, but even with the children we see, we're helping families navigate developmental diagnosis. All of their journeys are different, and there's so much emotional overwhelm and hearing about autism and hearing about different syndromes, or them coming and the child already has things, or they're wheelchair bound. And it can feel very similar, the fear, the waiting, the uncertainty, because I see how debilitating it is when the child gets kicked out of school and the parent is like, I don't know where to turn. I've tried 4 schools. I have no services. I don't know what to do. My kid is not functioning normally. While these are different extremes, the burden that lies on the families is the same.
Yes.
Because nobody has anywhere to turn. So you're now opening your doors to something that's like, hey, I'm here and I can help you. And I'm happy to do so by counseling you, by supporting your life. How can people apply, or how does it work with your program?
Yeah, so we have, 2 programs, obviously now 3 programs on our website. One is our in-treatment support, which helps families with everyday living expenses. I mean, we cover their mortgage, their rent, food, transportation, filling up their gas tanks. We pay their electric bill, their phone bill in case they have to call their doctor and figure out, what's going on, with their child's status at the hospital. We've helped medical co-pays that the insurance doesn't cover. Like,
so
you name
you
it,
guys host fundraisers.
Yes.
And then people can donate to the cause, and then that money for the year is dispersed among the families that are with you.
Correct. So we have 2 major events a year. People can go on our website and look everything up. And, we've got monthly donations. We have the community that fundraises for us. We have such a great community here that now that folks have gotten to know about us and the work and how, people can help and make a difference. And it's just, you have to, we kind of rely on the public generosity, obviously, because that's where most of our funds come from. We've gotten grants for our work, obviously, that we've been very blessed. And we have partnered up with 9 hospitals. We work with social workers every day, because you have to understand the social workers know the families best, right? So if a family comes to a social worker and says, I can't afford to pay this, whether it's a gas bill or parking at the hospital, anything, we're here. We're here to support them. There's an application that they can apply on our website. Obviously, we have to make sure that the child's in active treatment before we disperse the funds. And the families don't see the funds. It goes straight to the actual vendor. So we pay all their mortgage, their rent, so the family doesn't see it, because, what's one less thing for them to worry about? So we're here to say, hey, we got your mortgage covered. We got your rent covered. Go and be with your child, because that's what's very important, instead of them worrying about, mailing the bill or make sure it gets there on time. So that's what we do. Another program that we support, obviously, is our memorial support program, because we were there, right? We didn't know the outcome, obviously, was different. But, when a child passes, just the burden on that alone, the funeral expense, and it's just, it all adds up. And we had a great support system, obviously, knock on wood, the community that helped us. But, I was talking to some families in the hospital that really didn't have a support system. And the lack of resources, there were very little resources. So this is kind of why we started our in-treatment and memorial support, is to help those families obviously cover some of those funeral expenses.
I work with a lot of different people and organizations all the time, both right through Kidology and then, of course, now through my personal brand and the podcast. And I think that hearing your story really brings me back. And ironically, my mom's 4-year anniversary is coming up on March 28th. And I think losing anyone to cancer, or losing somebody suddenly, like when you say that your parents are alive, I can't imagine the sting from this in their lives, and the misunderstanding of, like, why us? Why did this happen? Because I miss my mom every day, and I wish she could be here to see, like, what I'm doing, no matter how much.
She sees You have to believe. I know
I'm
it's
like
hard to
seeing
say
my
this.
kids grow up, and it's just like they're taken from us, and it's unfair. But I believe, just like you,
She's watching
she's
over
guiding
you.
and watching.
And I do believe when they say that our angels, because
I'm a
your
big
mom is your
spiritual
guardian angel.
believer, 1,000,000%.
I always say every day, keep watching over us. And one thing I don't do is I don't talk enough about her,
And you have
this
to
is what
tell
I'm
her
gonna start.
siblings about her. And
Yeah.
I was on your website just now, and she's such a beautiful girl, and I love
Thank
that
you.
it's like a purple butterfly.
Yeah, her purple was her favorite color. Her room was all purple with purple sheets. Her initials were all
I
purple.
think we need to, like, if anyone's out there listening, go to their Instagram and follow along. And if there's any way you can contribute, I know we have a lot of listeners who also run nonprofits and run so many different groups nationwide. And I think that this is a cause and an organization that needs to be heard way further than it is at the moment.
Thank
and
you.
I really hope that people can open their hearts and arms and allow you and your group to be that supporting light for the people that need it the most.
Thank you. I always tell people, when I go out and share a story, if a lot of people are not in a financial state to donate, I always tell people, at least give us a follow. Give
Absolutely.
us a follow, whether on
Absolutely.
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, just follow, and see all the families that we support and how we're making a difference with our donors.
Yeah.
Money, basically,
Yeah.
right? And share our stories. We always share stories of families because that's the awareness part, right?
Absolutely.
You want to be transparent to your donors, and you want to show them the families and say, hey, because of your support this month, you were able to help this family with their mortgage. And you just have to be transparent. And we've been very honest from the very beginning. And we kind of want to bring more awareness out to the community, and more needs to be talked about it, because the more people know, hopefully one day, maybe in my lifetime, our children's lifetime, I always say there will be a cure or better treatment options for
Yes.
children that will be
Yes.
diagnosed today,
Yes.
tomorrow, for generations to come, right? Because we don't want to see children suffer, especially
No.
what I saw with my daughter. But we're here to support families, and we also help families during the holidays. We distribute gift cards, right? Because you have to remember, the holidays are the most stressful times, and every family is different. Every need is different. So we're here to support them during the holiday season. And
What do you feel like roles, were you in the children's hospital most of the time? Okay.
We were in the children's hospital.
Did they help you to gather more hope? Did they give her the ability to do schooling there or things that she liked? Like, how do the children's hospital play into situations like this?
You have the child life, right? You have child life nurses.
I work with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia to raise money, and those child life specialists are angels. And to recognize I've gone on the radio a couple times to raise money for it, and I'm always in tears because I know I have kids at home, and I can't imagine being those parents who are not home, or that child is not home. And at least to know that those child life specialists are there and can comfort them or do something with them that they like, that is a heart-wrenching, that is a difficult understanding, especially for people not going through it.
It is. You have to be a special person, I think, to be in that kind of role.
Oh, yeah.
We had a wonderful, wonderful child life. Every time Daniela got scared, when they had to clean her port, because you have to clean that, every 7 months, actually 7 days because of infection, right? Obviously, change her dressing. She was mortified, the screams, and I remember her sometimes the child life coming in and giving her an American Girl doll because she loved that, holding her hand. I mean, imagine, that's traumatizing.
No, that's
pulling out a needle, and cleaning the port. I remember, and it was just, I don't know, like how that would, I would do it, but seeing her do it, it was traumatizing. It really was, like cleaning her dressing every time, and they would come in, and I'm like, I would tell the child life, please help, come and help me, because I can't, and you have to, it's just, they were great, they always came in with prizes and dolls and gifts, and that's what kept you occupied too, if it wasn't for them, I don't know where these children, be honest with you, because they are godsend, and they're there for every child in the hospital, and trying to keep the parents calm too. You know?
My good friend, her name is Erica Sinner, and she owns a nonprofit organization that she is her passion project now. And it's called Tiny Superheroes. Have you ever heard of them?
I have.
And
she's yes.
They sponsor hospitals and children who are tiny superheroes who are going through it, whatever it is.
And they really are true superheroes.
And they get
they really
capes. Yeah, and they get capes, cute. And they're able to put the patches, and I think things like that Child Life gives. If anyone's out there listening and you can contribute in any way to the Daniela Conte Foundation, please do, because this is it goes such a long way. It goes to families and children who are in need the most.
Yes,
there's
it goes
no
directly to families. I also want to point out. Thank you. I also want to point out that we're a 100% volunteer organization, and this is why we've been able to raise almost, I think, over $500,000 in the last 5 years, and it has gone into families because we realize the need of the families, right? We don't want to turn any family away. You know, it's heartbreaking to say, no, we can't help your family because we don't have the funds. So we try to say yes to as many families that has turned to us. And just in this month alone, I can't tell you about 20 families needed help in the month of February. I mean, how
do you pick? Because you can't help. I mean, I guess you're trying to help everybody, but you have a certain amount of funds. How do you select the people?
Yeah, I mean, these are really low income families that we support. Obviously, families that are living under $80,000 per income. You know, these are really families, you know, single parents that are struggling. They don't work, and they're full-time caregivers. You know, those are the families that have come to us, that the social workers have referred us to. You know, these are families, really low-income families that really can't afford to pay their own mortgage. You know, I can't tell you the number of families that we have prevented from being evicted. You know, we kept the lights on.
For you and for anyone who's gone through, I think advocacy then becomes a form of healing.
Yes.
And strengthening, because you're projecting what you wished could be for you for others. You're helping to put all of that you've built up in you into helping them. And how do you build trust from these families that are in crisis? Is it that they hear of you and they're like, okay, she has this lived experience? Do you have a conversation with them?
We exchange emails. You know, we just don't write a check and say, here, we'll see you later.
Right, of course.
You know, a lot of them have seen, you know, what we do and the type of work we do. You know, I'm sure they read Danielle's story. And, you know, we email we email the families and see what emotional support, you know, if they do need more support, we do send them to other organizations that help with whatever type of assistance they need, obviously. But, you know, we're here. We want to help them as fast as we can, so that way, you know, we can keep their mind at ease, so that they can go and focus on healing their child, you know, and being there for their child 24/7. Because that's basically what parents want to hear. So,
what have you personally learned about leadership through grief?
Oh, that's a tough question. What I learned about leadership is, obviously, you really need a strong, you know, I'm a small team. I always tell people, you know, my team is very small, but we're a mighty team. You know, what I learned, you know, I went in this not knowing, you know, how to start a nonprofit. You learn as you go. You know, I learn something every day. You just really need to have a strong board too. You know, you don't need to have a big board. You know, you just have to have a small, you know, board members. We also have advisory boards. We have volunteers. You know, I have interns that work for me. We just have to have a board that really kind of believes in the mission and the cause. You know, the passion, their expertise, because it's not for everybody, to be honest with you. It's not, unless you're really gone through the journey. So sometimes it is difficult, because obviously no one's ever going to have the passion like me, because I was her caregiver. She was my daughter, you know, but you really need to have a strong team and a strong board that kind of believes in the mission and the cause and the impact, right? Because if you don't have that, then you can't grow as an organization, right? You really can't, because that's what kind of holds you back. And, you know, you don't have to have, like, people come to me sometimes like, how do you do this? How do you start this? I'm like, well first
that was my next question. Like, what would you say to somebody who's listening now and feels called to start something meaningful, but maybe
that they're passionate about, right? I was like, get your paperwork in order, you know, make sure you dot your I's and dot your T's, make sure you have the proper paperwork, put up a quick website, you know, make sure you select, you know, I think you have to have a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, you know, just put
and it's step by step. I feel like people worry that they need to have everything at once, and it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that, right? And then, like, you know, people are allowed to join boards. You know, someone says, you know, I want to help, you know, you're doing a great work, or my child was touched by cancer, or like my spouse. Anybody can join our board. We're all grassroots and want to come help and make a difference. Of course, you know, obviously we'll talk to them. We'll learn a little bit about their background. You know, we just brought on someone new this year we're very excited about, you know, on our board, on our team. She loved the work that we do, and she's ready to make an impact. You know, we want to help more families. The goal, hopefully one day, is we would love to go national and help families all in 50 states. Right now, we're just focusing on helping families all over the tri-state area. But hopefully, you know, I feel like until there's a cure or better treatments, I feel like this financial support is always going to be there. Families are always going to need the support. So we're here to stay. We're here to stay for a very long time until someone puts us out of business, right? And we're here to support every single family, and for not just today and tomorrow, but for like generations to come.
No, that's
what we're here for. So.
Hope honestly looks different for every family, and I think that if they come across you, they'll be so lucky, because I think you'll bring a lot of hope to them, because you bring things that they're missing or in need of. How can families find support through the Daniela Conte Foundation?
So any family right now that, especially in the New York tri-state area, that is struggling with financial, right, they can talk to their social worker. You know, they can apply for an application. Even a family doesn't have to be a social worker, but if a family does end up applying, we will confirm all the information once we receive the application. It usually takes about 5 to 7 days for us to turn around to confirm, obviously, all the information. And if they meet the criteria, that's when we respond back to the family or the social worker and says they've been approved, and that's how we send the funds directly to the vendor directly. So the family doesn't have to worry about where that, you know, type of assistance will be coming from during that month of need. So everything is on our website. They can go to www.Daniela with one L, so it's DanielaConteFoundation.org, and we're also all over social media, and we will love folks to follow us and learn a little bit about how, you know, what we do in the community and how folks can actually support and help us.
You're so strong, so incredible, so empowering. Cancer changes families forever. I know that as well, but so does love and support and community, and so does your leadership. So to every parent walking through something unimaginable, you are not alone. And anyone out there who needs assistance, if your child is going through something difficult, your family is going through something difficult, please know there are people out there that can help you. And please visit the Daniela Conte Foundation website. And to my mama, your strength lives in everything that I build. And I love you and miss you every day. Thank you so much for tuning in to this extremely heartfelt episode of the Growth Lab podcast. And I hope that you find it in your heart to donate and maybe be a support for somebody who needs it. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for joining me here at the Growth Lab podcast. I really hope this episode was helpful. If it was, stick around for more episodes by subscribing to the podcast wherever you're listening. And if you know a fellow parent that could use this episode, share it with them. Follow me on Instagram at Luba Patlakh. That's LubaPatlakh for daily advice and resources to keep you informed between episodes. See you next time.